Welcome back, everyone. So I went over your submissions, programming assignment submission, and I see that many of you either didn't follow my directions, instructions, or they misunderstood. Okay, so there are a lot of information there for you guys to read, and definitely I can see that some didn't read them carefully. Okay, so they were quite not that hard questions, like simple programs, one line, two lines, three lines of code, but there are a lot of information for you to read. Okay, so and if you don't read them and then consider you gonna waste, I mean, let's say the reason that you are not reading them because they are too long and then you didn't want to waste time. Consider this. You now didn't read them and you are in trouble now. You are spending more time debugging your programs, right? So please read them and spend time because in real world, if you are a software engineer, you would see how much you have to read in a problem statement that you are actually solving. Okay, so we need to pay that attention. We need to gain that skill as well. I mean, take it as a skill that you're going to gain in this class, attention to detail. Okay, all right. So I decided to uh, give you sort of an example problem, and I'm going to completely solve it, um, and then post it before the programming assignment. And that's why a little bit hold up in here before posting programming assignment. Okay, so here is the problem. So I'm going to go over here. All right. So there are three problems. Okay, so I recommend you guys to read some of these, like at least this one. This has the objective, learning objective of the current assignment. Okay. All right. So let us read the problem. Okay. So given the side length, write a side length. Given this side length, write a Python function named calculate volume cube to return the volume of a cube. The volume V of a cube of side length L is given by V equals L to the 3. All right. So notice the return, uh, this word is a boldface. Basically, now you have to return a value from this function, not print. Okay. We'll see the importance. All right. So, and then there are some instructions. All right. So we have to come up with the plan, and then we write our function. Don't forget the docstring. So if when I review your code, I'm basically going to deduct marks like this from Canvas side. Okay. So if you don't write this, expect less mark in Canvas first reported than Canvas first reported values marks. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go over to create this plan. I'm going to go to my code environment. Okay. All right. So this is Colab. So here's we have a text editor. So we first need to basically come up with a plan, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the problem. Okay. All right. And then come over here and paste it. Okay. All right. So, and then, okay. So, all right. Let's do this way. Okay. All right. So I'm going to take Jamboard. It's Google Jamboard. Okay. And my first thing is to make sense of the problem, right? So that is the understand step of Ampere process. Okay. So first step is we need to identify the input, right? So what's given to us, right? That is the input, okay? So what is the input? In this case, the side length, okay? So I'm gonna write it like side length, okay? So the input. Then let's figure out what is being asked. What are we supposed to find, okay? And that's basically the output, okay? Output equals, right? It's a volume, right? Volume of the cube, okay? So now when I have these two things, okay, so now I can basically write draw that black box diagram of a function. Okay, so let's basically consider writing this black box diagram so that it's part of your understand process, something to visualize what you need to do in the function, right? So we learned about black boxes in our earlier lesson on functions. So here we go. Okay, so I'm gonna take um, box, right? So I'll take this box and draw a box um, right here. Okay, all right. And I'm gonna write the input. Okay, so that's input. Okay, and then input is going to be, okay, so first input is basically side length, right? So I may have multiple inputs, but in this case it just have one. Okay, so side length. Okay, okay, so let me just all right, so that's the input. Okay, and then basically I have the output. Okay, so what is the return value of the function? Okay, so I'm gonna take another text box and write, so it's basically the return value, right? Return, okay, and well, the volume. Okay, okay, turn volume, and this one basically is supposed to be need. Okay, all right, so need means the input. Okay, you can write in um, just input as well. Okay, so need, so what function need to calculate, right? So just make it a little bit bigger. All right, side length. All right, and returns volume. Okay, so what is the function name? It's given to us. Okay, so I'm going to put another text box inside, and this is calculate volume cube. That's the name. And if it is not given to you, make sure to find that verb. Okay, the task that you need to accomplish in the function, which usually comes as a verb. Take that verb to the front end and decorate that verb with other specific information. Okay. All right. So let me make it a little bit bigger. All right. All right. So this is our function black box diagram. Okay. All right. So now let's figure out how are we going to calculate this one. And this one is real simple, right? So if we know that volume of a cube is side length to the power 3, right? So basically we can, it's given to us, right? So equals, right? If it is, excuse me, if it is the side length, L, so side length to the power 3, okay? So that's what we have to return, okay? So let's now write our plan. So this is basically the understand step, okay? All right, just understand step. All right, And let's write our, well, we need to find a match. It's simple calculation, right? So you can find a match. Okay. So just simple equations. You can write something like that. Oh, variable assignment, right? So we are assigning output, which is volume, to this equation, right? So Python data, you can write something like that. Okay. So in this case, match is not that significant, but you will see that when it comes to complicated problems, match is really important. Okay. So next step is plan. This is the most important. The steps that you need to follow in English to solve this problem. Okay. So make sure to get numbered list so that you follow the numbers. Okay. First one, we need to collect the input, right? Input, and that equals the side length. So you can simply copy paste what we have over here. Okay. And second, okay, well, this function, if you can see over here, it should return the volume. So this plan is really simple. Return, make sure to get this verb to the front so that you know that, okay, once you see it, okay, so I need to return in my code, okay? Return volume. So you can add one more line over here, like 2 as volume, right? Calculate volume, okay, and return volume. All right. So this is the step 3. So this is a simple algorithm. All right. So now that I have the algorithm, I can now code. So to code in Colab, we can simply um, go to code boxes and do it. Okay. Now we need to write our function, right? So def. Okay. So function name is calculate volume cube. Okay. So that's it's given to you. Okay. All right. And we take input to a function as parameter. So that's this parameter. Okay. All right. All right. Seems like. All right. There you go. All right. And colon. And then basically next line, don't forget to write the docstring. Okay. So in this case, it's returning the calculated value. So you can write calculate, or basically simply say returns the volume of the cube of side length. See that it's really descriptive, right? Anyone who reads this understands this what this function does. All right, and here what we need to do is basically return. We can get a variable for now and calculate the side volume, that is side length to the power 3. So this is the power operator, and 3 we learn it in the lesson. And then you return. See that we simply followed our plan, right? So we calculate the volume, that's right here, and we are returning now the volume. Okay. All right. So that's it. So if we want now, we can actually create a main program and test this one out. Okay. So for now, we can actually go to code check and then test our program. Okay. So you go to code check So we basically going to incrementally solve our problem. Okay. So I'm going to refresh the, okay. All right. So we need to click this button to go to our assignment. Okay. And you will see that there are a lot of information over here. Okay. So this is my LMS ID. So my test student LMS ID. So you have to write both. Okay. So as code comment. All right. So test student. Okay. And then the LMS ID. Okay. Like that. Okay. So basically it'll allow me to give you guys feedback. Okay. And then pair process. Okay. So I go here and copy that. So that's why please don't try to solve your problem right here. This is not an IDE, not a coding platform. This is just a dumb autograde. Okay. So dumb means it's basically can only do what I ask it to do, like to grade. Any other scenarios, it's not going to give you marks. So that's why I need to be able to see the code. Okay. All right. So you're going to go back and copy our plan. Okay. The steps. And then come over here and sorry, and paste it as code comments. Okay. All right. So right here, so it's one. Oops. And two, step two, and step number three. Okay. So I wrote my pair process, the plan. Okay. And I can now copy paste the code. So go back. In this code, with the header is given, function header is given. For a while, I plan to give that to you, but maybe starting from the next programming assignment, I'm going to take this away as well. So you will have to write entire complete function, okay? Because it's a really important skill that we need to gain in the class, okay? So that's it, and I don't need that. I also given return value as well, okay? All right. So that's all. So now we can actually, you can, in fact, you can test out your code as well. So for example, right here, well, it might not work because we have to fully complete this one, okay? So feel free to hit the button, but make sure to come back and fully complete your assignment, okay? So I have seen someone just without doing anything submitted the assignment and now it's 0. Okay, so make sure to come back and complete your assignment. Okay, so I'm going to go back and let's solve the rest of the problem. Okay, all right, so the next problem, basically we have this, right? So and then basically it says, okay, in your main program do this, right? We can actually do that, but let's solve this one too. So I'm going to copy this. So let's read it from here. Write a Python function named calculate number of cubes to return the number of cubic boxes of a given side length that is required to be fully filled out of a given bulk volume amount of sand. So there's a whole bunch of like whole bulk amount of sand is here, and then you basically need to fill out number of boxes by that fully fill out number of boxes by that sand, right? So here you must use the function calculate volume cube you created above. So we have to use the function that we wrote earlier, okay? So that's why this is a really nice problem, nice and simple problem that shows you writing how to write function, how to return values, how to call another function in another, and likewise. Okay. All right. So, and then uh, you have to follow this process. You have to write your plan, then write the function, doxing, all those that, and then in the main program you have to test it out. Okay. All right. So let's go to our code platform, and I'm going to get one text. All right, text box, and then we're gonna paste it here. Okay. All right. So and then let's look at the Jamboard. Okay. So first, let's read it again. Write a Python function named calculate number of cubes to return the number of cubic boxes of a given side length. So side length is given that is required to be fully filled. So we are going to fully fill, excuse me, each box out of a given bulk volume amount of sand. Okay. Here you must use the function calculate volume. So this function, we have to use this function. Okay. All right. So let's write our understand process. Okay. So this is basically the understand step. Okay. Okay. That's understand step. In the understand step, we read the problem statement and figure out what are given and what is being asked. So what should be the input? What should be the output? Okay, so input, what is given to us is again the side length of a cube. Okay, that's given. Okay, and okay, and then so what is being asked? Output. Okay, equals. Okay, all right. So output equals how many boxes can we fully fill, right? So number of boxes. So number of boxes. Okay, that's the output. You can write the more specific detail as well. You can take, my recommendation is take it as a variable, and then you can then follow the English and say number of boxes required to be filled fully, right? Something like that. Okay. You can even copy paste from your problem statement. Okay. But we are simplifying the question being asked. So that's the whole purpose of understand. Okay. All right. So in addition to these two, we need to figure out, okay, what are the restrictions? Are there any restriction? Oh, are there any like general thing being asked? In this case, there's a restriction. What is the restriction? We have to use, right? Here you must use the function calculate volume that we did earlier, right? So then it's better to copy paste that as well. Okay, right? So restrictions equals this. Okay, there's a restriction. All right. So now, so we our understand step is ready. Okay. So match. This is still like, calculating Python data, right? So, right, that's not serious stuff over here yet. Okay. All right. And the plan, now we're going to figure out a plan. So for that, I think I forgot to go over to black box diagram of this function. Okay. So it's part of understand process, guys. Okay. So I already wrote, draw this one to save time. So let's put the name, it's given. Okay. Function name calculate number of cubes. So that's paste over here. Okay. All right. And okay. I'm sure why it's not taking. Okay, again. All right, there you go. That's all right. You can keep it that way, like that. Gonna adjust a little bit. Okay, so that's the function name, and right here the input. Okay, so need. Okay, function need this guy side lane. Okay, all right, so I'm gonna write it here. Okay, and what it should return, it's returning a value. We're supposed to return how many boxes, right? So we can write it like this one. Okay, so all this activity gonna help you, right? Write this function clearly. Okay, so this should be returning. Okay, all right. So, all right, there you go. So this is our black box diagram. So always, whenever you write, even if it is simple function, get a piece of paper and draw this diagram, and then it will become a good habit. Okay. All right. So I do it even for the simplest function. I do it every day. Okay. All right. So now we can write our plan. Okay. So step one, we need to collect the input. Okay. So input. What do we input? We input side length of the cubes we have. Okay. And two. Okay. So we need to basically figure out how many boxes that can be filled by each of this from this sand, right? So it's like this. Imagine like we have the number 10 and we need to count how many trees we have, right? You know that there are three trees. Now, when we add up these three trees, the result will be 9. So there are no more trees. So remainder is 1. So it's basically, if we try it out, basically it's, right, it's the integer division. So we are counting how many threes in 10. It's 3. If you take like 13, it's 4, right? So imagine now the volume of a cube is volume of one of this cube is 3, and the sand volume is 13. So you can fill 4 boxes, right? So it's the same idea. So then basically what we have to do, we have to basically use this, uh, basically we need to calculate the integer division by this volume of the cube, right? So first we need to calculate the volume of a cube, right? So calculate, okay, volume of the cube, Q1, right? Q1 means the side length is given to us. So now you can clearly see this is the function that we wrote over here, right? Okay. The next step, basically return, right? How many? So this is still English code, right? So how many cubes? Okay. But we can write in the understand. We can go back and update our understand, and basically, right? So integer division involved. Okay. So we can write something like that. Okay. May need integer division. Okay, division. Okay, all right. So, right now that's it. So this plan is done, and I can go over here and add a code box and then write our function. Okay, so def, and the function name is given. Let's take this from here. So it takes input. So function, if it is a function, input take through this as a parameter, right? In this case, it's sideline. Okay. Okay. And then colon. Then don't forget again, I'm gonna write it as single quotation. All right. So returns the number of boxes, cube boxes that can be fully filled out of the sand volume. I think we need to input. These things happen. So in my understanding, I think we have another input, right? That is the given amount of sand, right? So sand volume. Okay. So sand volume. Okay. So that's the other input. Okay. So these things happen. This is, I mean, nobody solve a problem perfectly from the first get-go, right? Okay, so we pass that as well. So this should be in here or right here. We have two. One is this, and increase width, and the second parameter is sand volume. Okay. All right. So go back to our code. Okay. And then we need to first calculate volume, right? Cube equals. Now we're going to call the function we wrote over here. Okay. All right. Okay. And here, right? See, this parameter came through the function that we are defining. It's now passed into the call of this function. Okay. All right. So we found the cubes, UBE. Then we're going to use it in our calculation. So return, okay, sand volume. Right, in our example in the interpreter, it's 12, and then volume of the cube by use was 3. Right? Mathematically, it is this. I have 13, let's say 13 gallons of sand, and I have one volume of the cubic box is 3 gallons. So I can fill up 4 gallons, and then to get the rest of the sand, 13 mod 3. So 1 gallon of sand left. All right. So that's it. So this is the answer. All right. Now we can go to the next question, and then you can solve that as well. Okay. But for the moment, let's basically take this and fill out our solution. Okay. So it's right here. Okay. So that's the pair process. Okay. So there's supposed to be code. Okay. Sorry. So step 2. It's very important that you use numbering. Okay. So it's a recipe, right? So need to have steps. All right. So that's the plan, and then get the copy of the code. Okay. Excuse me. Go here, paste it. This is okay. So now this is really important. So I have taken this variable as the number of cubes. So we don't need this return statement because it's given. And take a good look at that, and it's using this variable, right? So let's choose that. Okay. All right. Okay, so I'm gonna undo this, and I'm gonna change this to this name, number of cubes equals this, right? And then I'm returning that. So that's the variable, I'm returning it here. Okay. All right, so let's go back to excuse me, a problem. All right, so the next problem is, let me put don't need that. I'm gonna put one more text. That's our next. I'm gonna copy paste our problem statement. Always do that. Okay, so as if you are using PyCharm or like local IDE, you can put copy paste your problem statement as code comments. I do that every time. Okay, so right here, the last one, this. Now we are basically selling sand. Okay, so all right, so so this is part of the understand process. All right, so let's read the question. Okay, so write a Python function named calculate revenue to calculate total sale price of a given amount of product of a given unit price. So that whenever a company or an entity makes a product, there's a unit price, right? So if they are selling it, that's the unit price. And how do we calculate the revenue? We calculate revenue by multiplying the unit price with how many we sold. So it's simple as that. Okay. So and and add to that, some companies or stores give discounts, right? So usually the discount goes into a single unit. So then basically we need to subtract that discount and then calculate, right? So this process. So the default discount amount. So this now there's this word default, and you should recall quickly when you see this. Okay, then this default parameters must be null. Okay, so we need to sort of like gain that capability through writing a lot of code. Okay, but you're gonna gain that. Okay, but we're gonna get into quickly. Okay, so and then basically there's a discount, and then there's examples also given. Okay, so so we can actually work out an example. So part of the understand process is also working out an example. Okay, and in the previous two questions, we did it in a few places. Like I did it in here as well in the interpreter. Okay, so in this one, but first figure out what being asked. Okay, so input. Okay, so basically what are given to us in this problem. So we are separating that out. So given is basically there are three things given, right? One is unit price, and right, and then number of items sold, right? So number of number of units. All right, don't be lazy to write this really expressive names. Okay, and then if you get into that habit in an interview, that would go a long way, because it tells that okay, you're not finding shortcuts, you are thinking others who gonna read and understand your code. Okay, so that means that you are a giver, you think about others. Okay, all right, the next is given is basically the discount. Okay, all right, and the default value is 0. Okay, that's the input. So what being asked is basically the revenue, right? So return or output, it doesn't matter. Okay, output equals revenues. Right. All right. So, okay. So that's the output. And then, well, you can simply write the formula if you know, right? So basically, if with the discount, the second example, and you can copy, you can take the same example, that's fine, and then write how it forms, right? It's given already, okay? So this is what, if the item unit price is $10 and then the discount is 50 cents, then we basically subtract that and then multiply the amount of items we sold, which is 100 over here. So we're going to get $950. So let's always try to work out an example. And this is still, it's not that complicated problem, but you will see that how valuable working out an example would be when it comes to complicated problems. Okay. All right. And then that's the understand, match. Again, here it's basically Python data, right? Basically create a variable and assign values. Okay. All right. And the so this should be like that. Okay. And the plan. So let's write the plan. Okay. So again, I think I forgot to do this. Okay. So I already wrote over here the drew over here the black box. So let's fill that out as well. Okay. Calculate revenue. Okay. So that's okay. It's a lengthy name. And over here, the given, there are two things need. Okay. One is this, and I'm going to copy paste this. Okay. And so two. Okay. All right. And the third one, there are three inputs. Okay. And third one is discount. Okay. All right. And then right here, returns. Okay. Return. What do we return? Return the revenues. Okay. Okay. All right. So it's kind of, they say a picture worth 1,000 words, right? So make your life easy by creating yourself this diagram. It's really important, and it can be part of the understand process. Okay. All right. So let's write our plan. Step one. So we need to collect input. So usually comes, if it is a function, must come as parameters. Okay. Don't get confused with input function and this input. Okay. Input to a function would be most probably through parameters. Okay. And then for novice students, this usually get mixed up and then get confused. Okay. Don't get confused. This input like as parameters to function versus the input function that we take command line parameters, okay, in command line inputs. Second, so we need to input these three data, okay, so it's, you can copy like this. Step two, okay, so step two, basically, we need to calculate the output, right? So calculate revenues. Okay, and return revenues. Okay. Okay. That's it. These are all simple functions actually, right? Okay. So let's write this code now. Okay. So I'm going to add a code box. So that's actually, if you want, you can write it like this. This is the implementation step of the compare process, right? Okay. So def, so we take the function name, calculate revenue. All right. And all right. So what are the parameters? Okay. So unit price, number of units, and discount. Those are the parameters. And we learn about this default parameters, right? So in the problem, it says, okay, default value for discount is just nothing, $0. So we can set it like this, 0.00. Okay. So that means if we don't pass anything for discount, Python going to take discount as 0, the default value. Okay. All right. So this one basically returns the revenues of selling this one, amount of items of unit price. Okay, let's try to make it an English statement. Okay, price with the discount. Right. Okay. So let's write our code now. Okay. So in the example, we are given this this example, right? So right here. Okay. So basically, it's discount. This is what we have to do. So we need to get the unit price. Okay. All right. So revenues equals. So you need to get the unit price and subtract the discount, right? Minus discount. That's basically gives the effective sold price, unit sold price, right? And then number of units sold. Okay. So that's it. And then return revenues. Okay. All right. So let's go back and then fill it up. So I'm going to copy the plan. All right. So right here, okay, as code comments. All right. So next one, step 2. Don't forget to make them code comment, guys. Okay, otherwise you're gonna get errors. All right. So right here, I'll go back and get the this code. Okay, and notice now I have given return statement over here and I have given nothing. So this is what I'm gradually make you guys write fully complete function by yourself. Okay. So in here it's missing, but it's supposed to return. Okay. Don't use print. Okay. All right. So, right. So we did it and then return revenues. Okay. And now, and I'm going to use, maybe you can, well, let's go here and then do it there. Actually, I recommend solving your problem over here. Okay. So what we have to do, we need to test our code. Okay. So that means we need to write the main function, def main. Okay. So, okay. And then first one, we are given basically the first problem. All right. So we need to, okay, we did this in the main program, calculate the volume of a cube of side length 3.5. Okay, so we do that. So, right, so we're gonna call, and basically we're gonna call and print, okay, need to print, okay, and then we're gonna call this function, the one that we wrote the first, okay. So this is what I'm going to do. All right. And I'm going to take this side length, and that's equal 3.5. Okay. So notice, guys, okay, so this one, this variable and this variable right here, this variable right here, and then the pass one right here, it's two completely different things, okay? But you can take the same name for that, because then it's really nice to connect the dots, okay? They are two separate entities. Right here, it's the global variable. Right here is the local variable, okay, once you pass it to the function. Okay, so we are printing that, and we can now test this out, right? So play, oops, that's a mistake. It should have 3.5. I'm waiting for it to run. It's really slow. Okay, it ran 3.5. I didn't put the value, so let's run. Okay, so we run. Oh, okay. So I didn't actually call the main, so I'm gonna add another code box. See, I only wrote the definition of main, right? I yet to call it. So if name, it's also have tooltips, equals main, okay? Then basically, oh, this should be if. That's why it's automatically didn't go to a, yep. All right, if, then call main, okay? All right, so now we're gonna run main, okay? Oops, that's a mistake. If name equals main, oh, calculate volume cube, it's not defined. Okay, why is that? Okay, so over here, okay, let me just check. Well, I think it's okay. That's weird. Oh, yeah, I think I need to run them all. Let's see. One time, yeah, run all. Okay. So let me run all. Oh, still okay. So a mistake. That's fine. Okay. All right, so this is syntax error. So let's fix that. Okay. Oh, there's a silly mistake. There's a space over here. All right. So let's run it again. Yeah. Okay. So let's run it. All right. So you got the value. It's 42,875. Okay. All right. So that's the volume in unit of a cube. So let's go back and then add others to main. Okay. So it's over here. Oh, right here. Next question is, in your main program, calculate required number of cubes to this. Okay. 2 units, length of 2 units, and then 1200 sand. Okay. So let's go here and we're gonna call this function now, the second one that we wrote. Okay. So I'm going to make this is, we are done with our understand. So I'm going to make it full screen. All right. Okay. So, excuse me, number of cubes. Okay. So we're going to call this function now. Okay. So in our main, right here, print. So notice that if you don't print, then you will not see the value the function going to return. So you will have to print it. Okay. So side length is going to be 2, and then sand volume 1200. Units. Okay. All right. So then run it again. This one too. Oh, again we need to actually run. We need to run all. Okay. All right. So we got 150. Let's go to the other one. Next question. It's asked, okay, calculate the revenue. So there are two ways. One is without discount. Okay, 50 and $20. And $500 and $20 with $1 discount. Okay, so let's go that and do it. All right, so we're gonna call calculate revenue. Okay, right here, so print. Oops. Calculate revenues. And okay, so let me take this. All right, first call. Oops. All right, its discount is not given. Okay, so that means we omit this parameter. So Python going to take, okay, Python knows, okay, it's not given. So it looks for the default value, and default value is 0. Okay. So let's put these prices. Unit price is, I think it's 50. Right. Well, no, I think we need to check. Oh, unit price is 20 and 50 boxes. Okay. So 20 and number of units sold equals 50. Okay. So and then you're gonna write and then calculate the revenues, and the next is basically unit price is same, and this is 500, I think, and we need to calculate. Now there's a discount. Okay, so we actually pass discount, and now we need to give a value to discount because it's not, you're gonna override basically the default value with this. Okay. Okay. All right. So let's run all. All right. So we calculated what we wanted. Okay. So I think this is the 50th. Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's submit this code now. Okay. So we can simply copy this. Let's take a look what's being asked in there. Okay. So in the main, so the side length given, so we just need to call each function, right? So we can copy what we need in here, this one, this line. All right, we'll go here, right? Okay, so, and by the way, guys, this 3 dot means this is not just single line missing. Okay, so it's really important that you understand. If you want 10 lines there, you can actually hit enter key and then write lines as many you need. Okay, so it's kind of misleading. It shows you just a single line 3 dot and doesn't mean that you just have to write one single line there. Okay, all right, so next one, this, and right here. All right, so oops. All right, and the next one, go here and then get this one. So don't try to write code in here. It's not that useful or helping. So next one is this one. Okay. And we can test out. We can run now. So call main. Okay. And then the other thing is, now starting with this programming assignment, I am creating a unit test, Python unit test that we're going to learn after our object-oriented OOP lesson. Okay, so you can take a look over here. This gives you some clues what needs to happen. For example, take a look at this function, right? So it's sort of giving you a clue. Okay, so the way I have set up my solution, and these are the names. See that week 3 example is the name. Week 3 example, sorry, go to the scroll to the top. Week 3 example, that is the main program name. That's the module, right? So I am importing it's over here, right? And let me annotate. So I'm importing it's over here, okay? And importing unit test module, which is comes standard from Python. And then notice, take a look, I am using the dot notation. Module dot, it's like math.py we use, right? So math is the module name, pi is the value we use, attribute value we use. In here, the attribute is this function name that we wrote. And you can take a look, okay, I am passing 4 and then 1100 in this test case. As you can get some clues, okay. Now, when I start not giving function names, not the function name, the like, let's say return, not return values, those stuff, you may get some clues to uh, what my expectation from this unit test. So take a glance on them. All right, so we are ready to submit. So we go here and then click. Okay, so code check. Excuse me. All right, all the tests passed. Okay, so score is 7 and 7. Okay, all right, so that is how you submit the code check for this is the example for the programming assignment 2. Okay, take a good look at this example, watch the video and understand how the process works, especially the umpire process and the formation of your solution throughout the assignment. Right, guys?